Good evening, morning, afternoon, wherever you may be, and welcome to the MMA show, sponsored by hattonjameslegal.co.uk. That's hattonjameslegal.co.uk, and now available on Spotify. So the recording will go up on Spotify. So please head over to there when the recording is out. To contact the show, you can email the show at the MMA Show 7 at the MMA Show 7 at gmail.com. The Twitter handle is the MMA Shower, and the Facebook page is Let's Talk MMA, and we always welcome your questions and queries, and even feedback that's not good. It's all good in the end. So please do keep contacting the podcast, and I think we've got a couple of questions that we'll cover in this episode. And so moving on to the main content of the show, it's to preview UFC 274, Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethjae. I think that's got all the hallmarks of an extremely exciting and high octane fueled fight. So looking forward to that. And it's a pretty heavy card, pretty solid card as well. And before we get into that, I'd like to introduce my co-host Matthew Penny from Purely MMA. Hello, Matt.
Afternoon, pleasure to be back. Really good main card, and looking forward to covering that and any questions that have come in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'll start with we'll stay on the main card, and there's quite a few good fights on there. You've got Joe Luzon on there. You've got Rua versus St. Preux. It's a fairly depth card with a fair amount of depth.
And you would think it's the goodbye fight for Donald Cerrone, wouldn't you? You'd think. There
might be, a good point, and there may be for Mauricio Rua as well. He's been around a long time. I remember him from Pride. So, how many more miles has he got on the clock?
Yeah, but I mean, compared to Cerrone, God, you're just going back so many years with them, and it's the kind of, you want to see them carry on, of course, for nostalgia purposes, but at the same time, you don't want to see them take too much more punishment than they need.
They've both been in wars. I remember the River Machida, Dan Henderson knocked him out with the elbow, brutal elbow, and obviously John Jones, when he became champion, he knocked out Rua. So and Cerrone's been in some wars as well.
Cerrone's been in some wars, but he hasn't won a fight in 3 years. I mean, you got to love the guy, but you worry for him, don't you? Because every fight he's in, it's a war. So he's got kids, and it's going to have an effect. And he's not winning in 3 years. You're creeping into sort of BJ Penn territory, where you start to ruin
any legacy you had.
Yeah, because then all especially younger generation, all they're going to remember is that old guy who loses.
Yeah, and Chuck Liddell unfortunately fell into that. I think his last 4 fights he was knocked out, or 5 fights. But I'm old enough to remember him at his peak, and he was lethal. But anyway, okay. So we're going to focus on sort of starting from the third fight from the top, and then going to the co-main event, which is Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza. And then we'll go to the main event, Oliveira versus Gaethjae. So starting with Chandler versus Ferguson, and Chandler's, I think this is his third fight, will be his third fight in the UFC.
Fourth.
Oh, okay. Was it Poirier, Oliveira, and?
He lost Gaethje.
Oh, Gaethje, was the last one, yeah.
Yeah, but then he beat Hooker in his, and that's kind of like his highlight so far, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
But I think an easy prediction: overall for this fight is that this could be, well, it should be fight of the year. I mean, what a crazy matchup. And I'm not sure what's happened for me personally, but I like to think that I'm on the ball with like fight announcements.
Yeah.
I like to know. I usually know what's coming up, but it literally started today, earlier off recording when you messaged me what fights we're covering. I had no idea this was officially announced.
Oh, okay.
I actually did not know that this was official.
Right.
I know for ages they were talking about it as like a potential, absolute slobber knocker, but I didn't know it was official. So when I actually looked, I was like, oh my god, it is actually official. I cannot wait for this fight. It should be mayhem.
Yeah. And so I said Poirier. He obviously didn't fight Poirier. His first fight was Dan Hooker, which he was very impressive. But then the title fight was Oliveria, which he lost, and then Gaethje was. I think they were just having fun in that fight.
Yeah, they were having fun. But I think I'm not going to give Chandler like too much of a hard time for those losses. Cause I mean, it's not like he took unranked fights. I mean, these guys are top of the division.
Yeah,
champion
and number 2 in the division. Yeah,
literally, like probably the best in the best 5 in the entire world. So you can't. It's a big step up in class for what he has been used to at Bellator. So it's probably more of an important fight for Ferguson.
As he's lost a few in a row, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's lost 3 in a row. I mean, a couple of years ago, a few years ago, you would have thought this guy's going to be champ for a long time to come. But he had a couple of tough injuries, didn't he? Which I think threw him off, and a couple of bad losses, and they were bad losses. They were destruction for him. So
Gaethje, Oliveira, and Durish was his last 3 losses in a row.
Yeah, and that was a big win for Dariush. That was a big win for him. But I still think Ferguson would still have something to offer at this division and in this picture. But he needs to start turning around and getting some wins now. It's very good. He's got an entertaining persona. He's got this sort of this hype around him where he's just crazy, and he walks into weigh-ins and stuff with like weights and stuff. He's crazy, but he's had a lot of injuries from doing all this crazy stuff. You see him on his social media. He doesn't train like normal guys. He'll do like obstacle courses to keep fit and stuff.
And he makes some of his own equipment, some of these rigs that he just assembles and does crazy obstacle training and kicking iron bars and wondering why his kneecap blows out. Yeah.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it's funny to watch on social media, and he's created a really good hype behind him with his fans. But in recent years, he's been injured, and they've been bad injuries which have really derailed him. Really.
Yeah. I think looking at styles, they're both very high-level American wrestlers, collegiate wrestlers. Chandler's brought that more into MMA, obviously more in Bellator. But they've both got a very good stand-up game. Submission-wise, I would give that to Ferguson. He has transitioned into jiu-jitsu more easily and more in a more dominant way, and he has got some crazy submissions. I think Darce choke is his specialist choke, or one of the scarf chokes anyway.
Yeah, every time he fights, the commentators, it's the line that they say. I think he's one of the only ones to have 3 Darce choke wins in his career. And I remember that fight with Kevin Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, the wrestling in that was so impressive. That's probably one of my favourite fights.
And he finished in by triangle in that one.
Yeah.
And Kevin Lee was quite dominant in the first round and a half.
Yeah, I think he came in with a really bad illness, though.
That staph infection, I think. Yeah.
Staph infection, yeah. But that was one of my favourite fights of recent times. I went back and rewatching that. Yeah. But it's Ferguson is. I think he slipped into this. I would call it like a modern day mindset of doing what the crowd wants. All the crowd wants every fight to be just an all-out war of stand, right? And I think he's fallen into that a bit now, and I think it's affected him as well as the injuries. I think both, as you said, both amazing American wrestlers, but I just don't think they're going to use it against each other.
No. Yeah, I'm of the similar mindset, and so prediction time, Matt, please give us your valued opinion.
I think Chandler's going to win it purely because he's got a longer career, but I think he's probably fresher than Ferguson. I just think Ferguson is too banged up. Maybe doesn't even take it too seriously anymore. Like he's just so focused on the crazy training and the crowd and being this wacky personality,
almost like a cult figure.
Yeah, he is almost a cult figure. And I remember when we touched on it, around the Kevin Lee time, where he was this scary championship obsessed monster. And you think, my God, this guy's going to rule the division.
Almost like a psychopath.
Yeah. And it's just recent years, he's almost becoming a parody of himself, and it's a bit sad. I'd love to see him focused again. But
it's like you used to laugh with him, but now you laugh at him, sort of thing. Yeah.
Almost. I wouldn't laugh at him to his face, but yeah, it is almost like that. And I think he's been banging on about the McGregor fight. And back in 2018-19, it was probably applicable, but now it's like, Tony, the whole division's moved on, because he always calls out McNuggets. It's like, mate, come on, things have moved on now. I think Chandler will get the win, probably decision, and probably match of the year.
Yeah, it's good that you mentioned McGregor, because they used to be in the same management company, and I remember Ferguson saying he was probably saying this for effect, but he said, he thinks McNuggets is scared of him because when he shook hands with him, he blah blah blah. But they were in the same early days anyway. They were in the same management company. I agree with you. I think Ferguson. It's with some fighters you can see a linear progression. It's the title or nothing, and they're doing things to make you believe that that's where they're going. With Ferguson, he is all over the place, and that may be part of his charm. His trash talking is, for me, sort of cringeworthy. I don't know for you if you get a similar feel when you hear him talk.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't think it's forced though. Like some trash talkers will put it on really forced, and that's why I cringe. But Ferguson, I just cringe just because it was cool and funny like 5 years ago when he was peak. But now it's like we've all kind of moved on, and he's the guy trying to get it back, as it were.
Yeah. And how badly did you want to see the Khabib fight versus Ferguson?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was it for years, wasn't it? That was the fight to have for years and years and years. But I think after, was it the fourth or the fifth cancellation? I think we all just did a sigh of, okay, well, let's just leave that alone, shall we? And for goodness sake, I mean, they had injuries on either side. Yeah. COVID got in the way, and just everything. So. Yeah, it wasn't meant to be.
Exactly, we just resigned ourselves to the fact that it's not going to happen, and it isn't going to happen. But at their peak, that would have been one hell of a battle. I would have given it to Khabib still, but that would have been one hell of a battle, a war.
Yeah, I'd have. So after the Dariush fight, I remember everybody on Twitter saying, "Oh, and this is the guy that you think could have beaten Khabib back, years ago." I think years ago, in 2019, 18, when Ferguson was at that scary sociopath kind of level, I think that would have been a good matchup then. because that was Khabib with a couple of years less experience as well. I think it would have been even back then. Obviously, if it happens now, yeah, it would have been it'd be an easy Khabib domination. But years ago, I think it'd been a little bit more even.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ferguson did have a couple of fairly nasty injuries. One was his leg. I know one or at least two were before the Khabib fight. One for sure, but maybe another injury he had before the Khabib fight.
Yeah, was that after that one or before that one? He had the injury where he was injured during press week.
Yeah, he was at a presser and he had sunglasses on indoors, and he tripped over one of the television cables, camera cables, I believe. And blew out his knee, and I think that might have been the title fight where eventually, what's his name, the guy from New Jersey, Al Iaquinta, stepped in last minute.
Yeah, that was it.
Because they had Max Holloway come, because it was only, like you said, in the last 2 weeks of press, obligations, and then Max Holloway came in about 8 days before. He tried 3 days of losing weight, couldn't do it, so he was off. I think Max Holloway walks around about 190 pounds, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's just craziness follows Tony Ferguson, doesn't it?
But no, it should be an exciting fight, and I'm looking forward to it. And if Ferguson does bounce back and rekindles and reignites his career, then good luck to the bloke, and he may have another run at the champ. And when you get to his caliber, which no doubt he is elite, if he won against Chandler and maybe another, you could start talking about him being in the title contention again.
Yeah, just get that passion back, get that level of mindset back, and then we all want to see it, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and obviously in UFC it depends how you win as well.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Okay, so I think we both went for Chandler there, but you didn't say how.
Yeah. Chandler decision.
Okay. Yeah, I think I don't know. I think TKO Chandler, because Ferguson has taken a lot of punishment since the Gaethje fight, so maybe a TKO, sustained punishment, maybe.
Yeah, or a TKO, but rather like a referee.
Referees, yeah.
Yeah. I can't see him being knocked out cold.
No,
I can see him
he's too mental for that. Yeah. Sustained punishment. I think sustained punishment sounds better than TKO. Do you?
Yeah.
Should be an official way of finishing a fight. But anyway, okay, we'll move on to the ladies' title fight, a strawweight fight, which I believe is £115, which is Rose versus Carla, and Rose is obviously the champion. She beat Zay Wing, and did she defend against her as well straight away?
Yeah, she did. I always find it funny about her the last 5 years of her career. She's only fought three girls in the past 5 years, but obviously she's fought all of them twice. Yeah, that's right. You'd think for a rematch you'd get better, but she seems to take a step back and get worse in the rematch, because obviously she knocked out Wei Li first, and then the second fight was decision. Against Joanna, the first fight was KO,
and then the decision.
So it's like, and I don't even count the Andrade
slam,
because it was such a fortunate.
Yeah, it's a fluke. It's a fluke. Yeah,
it is a fluke.
Yeah.
I hate using the word fluke in a fight, but it was just she didn't mean it. She didn't mean.
But if Andrade did it another 50 times in a row, she wouldn't happen. But a fluke with merit, shall we say, to be nice. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, but it just. just amazes me, and I'll keep my prediction for Rose pretty short and sweet, because I mean that's the only way you can put it. For somebody so small and light, she just has this power in her hands or with kicks. It is one of those the touch of death. I think Joe Rogan mentions it. If she lands clean, it can be lethal, and it's just so good to see. But there's just there's a lack of top contenders in the women's divisions. So it's, when you get to the top, it's very much that's you at the top of the mountain, and there you go. You're there for a while. Yeah,
I think overall, from an overall perspective, it's. I think Rose has got more weapons, and like you say, she's got the power to finish fights, and she's proven that with punches and TKO and head kicks. So I'm going to go for Rose by finish, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Rose by finish, and I'm sure it's a couple of weeks away yet of time of recording. But Esparza has beaten her once before, years and years and years ago. Ultimate Fighter, I think, and I'm sure they're going to play that up in the build-up. I'm sure they're going to mention it 1,000 times that Rose has lost to her once before. But I think this is I don't think you can compare the two. I think the Rose of 2022 compared to 6 years ago, whatever it was, are very, very different prospects.
Yeah, I agree. So
just too well-rounded, and it's not. I don't even say well-rounded, because well-rounded is almost a dig at somebody for being average. She's not average, but she's just every step in the game, she's at the top. So it's hard to say. It's hard to see Esparza getting the better of her on the ground or on the feet.
Yeah, I mean, Esparza's got some wrestling credentials, but I don't think she'll have the power to even if she takes it down, to keep it down, because Rose has got a very good guard game as well, off her back. So unless she's a lethal finisher, Esparza, which she's not, then or a lethal ground and pound artist, then Rose will either finish or just get back up, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Esparza's ahead of her in jiu-jitsu, but it's just at that weight class especially, they're just so quick and wily, and it just does take them a lot to keep them down. And obviously it's all like for like, right? It's all relative, because they are all that weight and very similar sized. But I think just the way Rose has come through it through the years, I think she'll have it for sure.
Okay, moving on to the main event, which is Oliveria versus Gaethje. And Oliveria, he's had an amazing run, and I really like the guy, and it's a good story. Because if you sort of just notice him now, you think, oh yeah, young guy, and straight into the UFC. No, he's been around 7-8 years, and his last loss was to Paul Felder, TKO. And that was 5 years ago. So he's been on a run for 5 years without losing, for about 8 or 10 fights, and in those 8 and 10 fights he's obviously become champion and stayed champion, defended it once against Poirier. And so Justin Gaethjae, he's had a chance at the title, but he got submitted by Khabib. But he's a lethal striker as well. So it's a very good matchmaker's sort of a fight, I think, style-wise.
Yeah, I'm surprised Gaethje got the fight so quickly, to be honest. I mean, it's been 1.5 years since he had the last title fight, but he's only fought once in between that. And I know because of his style, it means he can't fight a huge amount of times in 1 year, or usually he can't. But I mean, it's a great matchup, but you got to look at it and think, well, if Oliveira can close the distance and take Gaethje down, it's one of those things. It's like when you take like Conor McGregor down a couple of years ago, you just can't see him getting out of it, and it's very much that kind of style. And I think it's a very similar matchup to saying Conor a few years ago. If you get him down, then you are going to win that fight. If you get Gaethje down, you are going to win that fight. If he cannot utilise his immense striking, you're going to win no matter what, for sure. You're not going to, especially somebody of Oliveira's level. What is he? Obviously a black belt, but a third degree black belt. I mean, you're not going to be outwitting him if he can close the distance.
Yeah. Yeah, and Gaethje's got a American wrestling background, and before the Khabib fight, I remember watching the build-up, and they were trying to his team, his coaches on the various build-up media and programs, and they were trying to say, well, he's I don't know what exact level he got to, but it was in the national and sort of state level, high level things, and they were saying, yeah, well, he could resist Khabib and blah blah blah. No, I don't think so. And that proved to happen. People don't realise Khabib, Dagestan, they're not American wrestlers. They're submission wrestlers, and when they get someone down, the difference is American wrestler will try to be top heavy and ground and pound. These Russian / Dagestani wrestlers, they tie up the legs with their legs, so because all your power for your hips, well, not all, but a lot of your power from your hips generates from the back of your legs, your hamstrings. So they understand the body dynamics better than wrestlers. And to be fair to American wrestlers, it's all about pin and control. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that Oliveira is not up to Khabib's level from a wrestling takedown perspective. So Gaethje could nullify that, and I can see that happening, and then it becomes stand-up, and I think Oliveira is obviously a lethal striker, but I would edge towards Justin.
I think that's what they did. They did with that with Conor, going up to the when Aldo pulled out the first time and he got given Mendes. They spent the whole build-up saying, "Oh yeah, well, Conor really hasn't got the proof that you can see of Mendes, but he can handle himself, and we've been working hard on it." But then when it got to the fight, Mendes was controlling most of the fight, and it was a very fortunate event that got Conor up in the last 20 seconds of the round, which allowed him to win. So of course, it's not straightforward, of course, a fight never is. But if you want to make it in the plainest possible terms, if it's on the ground, I give it to Oliveira 100% of the time. But if Gaethje can survive, say, like a long round of being on the ground and then get up late when Oliveira's tired, because it's going to be a very, very tiring job keeping Gaethje down, then Gaethje's going to have a very tired guy across from him who's going to have to defend against some extreme striking that we know Gaethje has, and some extreme power. It's a very similar kind of matchup that Conor and Mendes had all those years ago.
Yeah, and I think your overall summary is good, that the longer it stays on its feet, the fight, that you sort of start to edge towards Gaethje. And then, but if there's events or if there's episodes of getting to the ground and maybe Oliveira gets close to a submission but Gaethje gets back up, then, and if he does that 2 times, maybe I don't see him having multiple chances. If he gets taken down 3 times, he'll surely get finished. But if he does it once or twice, A, the tiredness kicks in, and B, it's a bit of doubt in Oliveira's mind kicks in as well. And confidence, conversely, confidence in Justin's ability to get back up. But I wonder, because Justin, he doesn't, he hasn't shown, even though he's got very high credentials in wrestling, some fighters take it with them and have that style. Some fighters become very good at stand-up and I can't really recall too many times that I've seen Justin Gaethje, use a classic takedown, ground and pound, submit. But he can use it as a defensive mechanism and, stop Oliveria trying to take him down. It's not impossible.
No, for sure, and it would be good to see, because, I mean, Khabib tore him apart, but Khabib tears everybody apart. So you'd think if Oliveira comes in here and dominates for 5 rounds, or until he finishes it on the ground, that is going to be a constant chink in Gaethje's armour. Any future fight he's going to have, if he gets tapped out again to another high elite wrestler, it's just going to stand out in every fight, isn't it? It's just going to be a big chink that everybody's going to see.
For his opponents, it's going to be the go-to strategy. Yeah,
he's a very high level American wrestler, but going up against a 3rd degree black belt jiu-jitsu in Oliveira, I think there are certain levels to that, and it's going to be an interesting matchup if it does go to the ground, and you think it will.
Yeah, I think the point about the sort of the jiu-jitsu versus wrestler is that certainly in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, there's not a lot of focus on taking your person down. They rather go to their own back and bring someone else down, especially if they're really good off their back. So the skills they have for taking down people is judo type trips. And if you watch the early days of the Gracie, it was like rush someone, trip, hook your leg, trip. And let's face it, Brazilian jiu-jitsu is judo.
Yeah.
By another name, but anyway, that's another topic in a podcast. But so the point is, a lot of them don't really learn or emphasize the taking down of someone. It's let's get to the ground, however. But with American wrestling, a lot of it, a good percentage is defense as well. So Justin Gaethje, and this is the conundrum. I think the guys that become really good stand-up fighters, wrestlers, American wrestlers. How much of their, after 24, 25, whenever they start to ascend in the UFC or whichever major promotion, do they still practice wrestling? Because they probably did it since they were 7 till about 23, 25, so they maybe think they don't need to, and then things wear off. I don't know, but it's a difficult one.
And also in the UFC, for a long time, and I still even think to this day, there's a lot more weight put behind guys who get like a lot of KO wins compared to guys who are good on the ground.
Yeah, and
it's whether we agree or not on if it's right or not. I think promotionally wise as well, it's probably easier to promote a guy who's just got all these amazing, knockouts to show, and
it's style.
It tends to get
it's style over substance, not substance, but style is huge.
Yeah. I mean, like real fans of MMA, of course, will love a fight which goes to the ground and you can actually enjoy it and break it down and watch what's happening and watch two guys try and outsmart each other on the mat. But it's just increasing as well that, even live crowds, as soon as they're a grapple against the cage,
they start booing.
Boom. Yeah. Straight away. Like, oh, boo. Come on, guys. Like, let the fight play out. Obviously, if you have 3 minutes of guys just hugging each other on the cage, I get it. But it just seems to be the snap reaction to a lot of fans nowadays, just to boo, as soon as they're not, they're not bleeding. So
that T-shirt, and you're right. And also the case of style, like you said, it's a huge. I agree with you. I think maybe recently it's becoming more and more prevalent, and I think one example I can give, recent example anyway, is a couple of weeks ago where it was Gabriel Burns versus Hamzat Chimaev.
Yes.
And that was a crazy fight, and it was an amazing fight, and it was back and forth. They both had chances to finish each other, but someone asked Dana White, a reporter asked Dana White about, I think Khamzat's only had 4 or 5 fights in 2 years or 18 months. And they were asking about his popularity, is he up there with Conor and Ronda Rousey? And Dana said, yeah, I think so. And he said, I think Khamzat's got 3 million Twitter followers already and things like that. So they're obviously looking at how popular this guy is. Now, obviously, he can fight, and he's a lethal weapon, but it is important to be popular as well.
It's all about making the company money at the end of the day. It's, you are going to be pushing the guy who can advertise the fight to more people. I think that's why Greg Hardy got so many fights that he did in the UFC. I know he's been cut now, but he had such a big negative or positive.
Yeah.
If you've got a following, it doesn't matter. You can still sell that pay-per-view. Yeah. Which is I don't want to go on a massive tangent about it, but I think that's why I'm surprised that somebody like Jake Paul in the UFC already, to be honest, being given a fight, because I mean his attraction, positive and negative, is so wide. I think it's only a matter of time until Dana says, do you know what? Okay, let's do a fight with Jake Paul in the UFC. But I digress.
Yeah, that's another topic for another, and a good topic as well. Maybe we should do a dedicated podcast on that.
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul and the wider, picture of merit versus, like you say, true fans and casuals, and the D word, deserve, who deserves a title fight and who doesn't.
Definitely.
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay, we'll coming close to finishing the podcast, and I'll tell you what, time flies when you start talking MMA.
I know, it's like being down the pub.
We'll take one fan question or comment, really, and it's from Twitter. It's just a handle of it, doesn't give a name. HBD2. Okay. There's a rumor or a announcement or whatever, rumor, let's call it rumor, that Leon Edwards who was promised, now we use the word promise in inverted commas, which you can't see me doing, so that's fine. Leon Edwards was in line, promised, and to fight Usman. But about 4 weeks ago, there was, Twitter war is going on between Usman and Conor McGregor. So Conor said, he wants to be a triple weight champion, triple C. And Usman responded in the media, and he went back and forth. And I think Michael Bisping jumped in, and Daniel Cormier and whatever. But apparently there's been a rumour that Leon Edwards has been told, here's $2 million for your troubles, please sit to one side and let Conor McGregor face Usman for the next defence of his reign. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of links back to what we were just saying.
It's a good segue.
Yeah, it's about promotion, and it's about how popular you are. Positive.
Anyone would think we planted that, rehearsed that or something.
Yeah, but it's just from Dana's point of view, who are you going to give the Kamaru fight? Who are you going to give that fight to? Are you going to give it to, without doubt, the biggest star that the UFC has ever seen in Conor McGregor, in terms of popularity, eyes on him, pay-per-view buys, effect on the business? Are you going to give that fight to him? A fight which could arguably, if built correctly, could break the Conor Khabib numbers. Or are you going to give it to the guy who is probably most deserving of it in Leon Edwards, but has a tiny social media following, who, with all due respect to him, 99% of the general public have no idea who he is. From Dana's point of view, there's only one answer to that, and you'd give it to Conor. No matter what about what their personal history is. Because I know they keep becoming, they keep arguing publicly, but then are best friends the next, Conor and Dana. But
yeah,
it just makes at the end of the day, it's about the business, and it makes business sense to give the fight to Conor. And to be honest, even for Leon Edwards, you'd have to look at it and go, well, I could be paid like whatever, $1 million here for not fighting, not going through a fight camp. Let this fight play out, and imagine it's a completely different conversation entirely, right? Who was going to win out of Conor and Kamaru, right? But just let the fight play out. If Conor was to win, and then you are next in line, you're not going to get it because Conor won't defend the belt, right?
No.
But in your head, you'd think, well, I'm going to take no damage here. I'm going to be paid $1 million or whatever. No fight camp. I'm going to be chilling here with $1 million in my pocket, and then have the potential of a fight down the line anyway. I mean, I get it. He wants the title and to start building his legacy. I get it. But I mean, it's not a bad offer, is it, to take a huge lump sum for absolutely no reason at all, and then you'll eventually get the fight anyway down the line.
Yeah.
I mean,
and even if Conor wins and doesn't defend, there'll be an interim. See, he'll have a chance for the title anyway, or not interim, but he'll be vacant, and then he'll have a chance with whoever steps in.
Yeah, and there's probably a good chance that Kamaru will be the guy fighting for that vacant belt. So Leon would probably get Kamaru. Anyway.
I was thinking maybe Colby Covington could fill that void.
Yeah, or Colby. Yeah. So I get it. Leon, I think he feels like he's been pushed to the side for enough time now, and he wants that fight. But you're going to take no damage. You're going to get a big lump sum in your back pocket. Yeah. And then eventually you will get the fight anyway. I mean, so I think from all angles it works. There's pros for everybody.
Yeah.
And then Usman gets
it's life-changing money. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Conor Usman would be interesting. I always say this for Conor because the hype around him. I think it would be an absolute demolition win for Kamaru Usman. I just want to say that right here and now. It'd be a massacre, to be quite honest.
Yeah. But entertaining massacre. Yeah.
Oh, but can you imagine the hype around that fight week and stuff? That would be that'd be incredible. And already they've been sniping each other from afar for a good couple of years. I think I rewatched the Kamaru Usman podcast with Joe Rogan from like a year and a half ago, and even in there, Usman's talking about Conor, and Conor's been tweeting about him for years, being the potential of being a triple champ. So
yeah, no,
ramp that up a little bit, and you've got a gold mine of a fight on your hands there.
Yeah, easy $1 million and a half. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well I'm making towards 2. So yeah. I think Conor and Khabib, I think that did 2.8, which is just incredible, really. It might break that, but if the feud was like ramped up a little bit, but still a 1.5 to 2 mil pay-per-view. That's huge numbers for everybody involved.
Yeah, yeah, and who knows? Maybe in next month's podcast we may have official confirmation, and we could start talking about a build-up. But we shall wait and see. Yeah. Yeah,
for sure.
But no, that's good, and it all keeps the world of MMA, UFC exciting, and. Leon Edwards, again, this sort of backed on to our debate about deserved and substance and popularity and promotion. P in promotion doesn't just stand for promotion, it also stands for popularity. And, they all look at how many followers you have, your social media interaction. And because if someone's following you on Twitter Facebook and say your YouTube channel or Instagram, there's a good chance they're going to pay to watch you fight. So I can understand the logic in that.
Yeah, for sure. It was just it makes sense. I mean, Twitter and the overall fight community will jump on it and go, "Well, you know, you're screwing Leon Edwards out of what you deserve and everything and this and that." But if you take a minute and just look at all the different moving parts for everybody, right, including the business, including all three fighters involved, they all get something out of it. They all get like quite a lot of pros, and they're not really. None of them are really missing out on anything, because, you know, Leon will eventually get the fight. Usman and Conor then gets their massive payday again. They get the big title fight, which then benefits the business. It kind of all does make sense.
Yeah.
Apart from Leon just being sidelined again, but if you're paying him to do it, then I mean,
yeah, it's different.
You get paid a load of money for doing nothing and getting no damage. I mean,
yeah,
there's worse places to be.
It is, and it's different this time because he will get handsomely compensated, which will make a difference. For sure. Yeah. Okay, that, believe it or not, that brings us to the end of the podcast, Matt. So it's always good to have you on as the co-host. So thank you for that.
Pleasure as always. Pleasure as always.
And time always flies. Yeah.
It does. We always say under 30 minutes, but that never happens. But
yeah, so this has been the MMA show, sponsored by hattonjameslegal.co.uk. As I said at the top of the podcast, it's now available on Spotify, so if you do a search, you'll find it there. And this has been a preview of UFC 274, Oliveria versus Gaethje. And we look forward to getting your emails. And just before you go, Matt, are you going to any events in England or live events?
So I am looking at going to Bellator 281 in London. It was going to be Michael Venom Page getting his title fight, but he's just pulled out. The champ, he just pulled out, I think, this week of the title fight. So they're going to give MVP a substitute. But it's quite a big card as well. I think Makeda is fighting on it as well, and Paul Daly as well, who's a bit of a cult UK legend in MMA. So yeah, it looks like it to be a good card. And I went to Bellator again in London last year when MVP had his rematch against Lima. So that was good. I didn't go to UFC just because I think they're pricing themselves out of the market. That UFC know that they only come to the UK once a year, and they still put these massive, ridiculous ticket prices, which always sell out, within 10 seconds, and then they be put on the resale market for like $2,000 each or something stupid like that. But we'll see. So yeah, Bellator coming up next month. Fingers crossed. And any live events, I'm always live tweeting and doing discussions at Purely MMA on Twitter. So pop along and join a good hub of good people chatting about good MMA.
Yeah, sounds like a good strapline. So this has been the MMA Shower, and thank you for listening, and good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. Thank you.